people have come to believe that this concept of multiculturalism, which is rooted in communism, but it's a sort of soft identity-based communism. And that's what they believed. And I'd taken part in those debates in the late 1990s, early 2000s. I don't know, you remember that probably also.
I do.
Yeah, multiculturalism is the answer to everything, and we were all becoming morally right. You can't compare cultures, you can't compare religions, everything is the same. We don't want to be ethnocentric, blah, blah. So I really thought that that was coming from a good place. And then I went into politics. And as a member of parliament, walking the corridors of power, I saw how that went from coming from a good place to becoming, cynically, how do we just win elections? And my colleagues were not asking the question, if we win elections with the ethnic vote, or if we appease the Islamists, we're going to agree, we're going to accept and implement policies that will have very negative consequences for our society. They didn't seem to care.
So since Ilhan is the representative from there and seems to be at the center of this, I mean, do you think she's sort of equal parts all three of those things? She kind of thought, well, do the fraud because we can kind of get away with it and I'm the representative. Kind of has sympathies, let's say, to the Muslim Brotherhood, and then obviously is a progressive in the Democrat Party. Is she equal parts, or do you think one is running? It's just hard to understand what's going on there.
Ilhan is 100% clan-oriented. And again, the other thing you have to understand is the Muslim Brotherhood in Minnesota and elsewhere in America is decentralized, and it's all delegated to, the Somalis. So the Council of American Islamic Relations in Minnesota is led by, the head of that is a Somali. So he's still advancing the Muslim Brotherhood agenda. He's a Muslim, etc. And then obviously the largest membership are Somalis. So there's this hybrid symbiotic relationship that these two groups have. And so Ilhan Omar has to navigate that. And then she also has to navigate the Democratic Party, and she has to navigate the opposition, the Republican Party, the Trump administration that is now onto this cabal, onto this threesome, and they have to figure out how they're going to deal with it. And so this is, she's a real politician. I think she's a capable, talented politician, and she can put on these different hats, whatever or headscarves, whenever it is convenient. The question is, how long is she going to survive? Because she cannot serve all of these masters at once.
So as somebody that grew up in Somalia, your first years in Somalia, underwent female genital mutilation, which you've written extensively about, then became really, I would say, a feminist in the true sense of the word, the original feminist sense of the word for equality, in the fighting for the West. You were also one of the first people that I ever heard talking about the sort of red-green alliance and the sort of useful idiots that the progressives play alongside the Islamists. That seems to be bursting forth in a more obvious way these days. But when did you really first see how sympathetic or confused the progressives and the left were with the radical Islamists?
Well, I saw that in the Netherlands, and I think in my early encounters with Dutch progressives, I thought it was all coming from a good place. I thought they were people who felt that they were privileged, that they had held colonies in the past, that they were super wealthy. And when I was in parliament, it was part of the Dutch national policy to reserve some of the GDP to develop other kinds of poor countries, to bring, poor people from third world countries into modernity. It was part of the national, the Christians active in that country to say, we're going to volunteer and welcome everyone. So that's how I interpreted it. And also, by the way, my assimilation, which was very quick into Dutch society, I thank most of that for Christian volunteers, people who volunteered because little pieces of paper were hung in the church, like who wants to teach 2 Somali girls in the Dutch language, and people volunteered. And then from there, for me, it was truly accelerated. That's how I interpreted it. But then over time, I came to understand and to review that there's an ideological component. People have come to believe that this concept of multiculturalism, which is rooted in communism, but it's a sort of soft identity-based communism. And that's what they believed. And I'd taken part in those debates in the late 1990s, early 2000s. I don't know, you remember that probably also.
I do.
Yeah, multiculturalism is the answer to everything, and we were all becoming morally right. You can't compare cultures, you can't compare religions, everything is the same. We don't want to be ethnocentric, blah, blah. So I really thought that that was coming from a good place. And then I went into politics. And as a member of parliament, walking the corridors of power, I saw how that went from coming from a good place to becoming, cynically, how do we just win elections? And my colleagues were not asking the question, if we win elections with the ethnic vote, or if we appease the Islamists, we're going to agree, we're going to accept and implement policies that will have very negative consequences for our society. They didn't seem to care. I mean, we would detail those negative policy consequences, but the people who did that would be sidelined, marginalized, and they would be smeared and shut up. And everybody would just go with the dream fantasy of, we need to win the elections. That's the most important thing. And we'll do it. We'll win these elections, whatever it takes. Are you on board or are you not on board? If you're not on board,
And by the way, it wasn't only the Netherlands that this was happening. Obviously, this was across much of Western Europe. So that leads me to, do you think there is a sort of free Western future, largely Christian future for Western Europe specifically?
I think now that the populations, large swaths of the populations who, because these societies were rich, not just the Netherlands, but all these other Western European countries, the United States, Australia, Canada, these are societies that were so wealthy that they could, for a long time, at least 2 decades that I have witnessed, they could ignore the consequences of the negative consequences of these policies. But we can no longer do that. Now it seems as if it's not just the working classes who are affected. It's not just women who are affected. It's not just Jewish minorities who are affected. It's not just Black Americans, African Americans, descendants of slaves in America who are affected. It's the middle classes. And it's, even Silicon Valley, the richest, most powerful people in the world are saying, my country, my environment is changing in a way I didn't vote for and I don't like. And who are the people who are making these decisions? So as this comes out into the open, and these subversive forces, the Islamists, the communists, and whoever has hijacked the Democratic Party, that's what we're talking about. Now that is exposed, and I think it's healthy, I think it's good, and maybe there's a chance that we reverse these policies.
So what does reversing it actually look like? Because I've asked a lot of different politicians from a lot of different countries. And, you can get some people, or there are certain places like Hungary, but that's not Western Europe, it's Central Europe, where, obviously Orban has closed the border. In America, we've closed the border. But there's also a homegrown issue now in Western Europe. And in Holland, Geert Wilders, from what I understand, talks a really good game about this.
Mm-hmm.
But are they doing anything? I think they've closed the borders a little bit, but are they deporting people? They're still part of the EU. Like, there's just so many conflicting pressures there.
So what does reversing it look like? I think I would just like to use the American example after Donald Trump is elected in November of 2024. And he ran on this, I am going to close the borders and I'm going to, track all the alien illegals and deport them. Now, that is the reversal program. It's very, very messy. And it gives, again, these other forces the opportunity to impede law enforcement, to create this sense of chaos. So it is, that's what reversal looks like. I've looked at countries like Sweden. Sweden used to be the most welcoming, the most naive. I mean, if you I think it's a compliment to call them naive. I think sometimes they were stupid, and sometimes the elites of Sweden were insensitive to their populations, so they need to be held accountable. But it's okay. Reality is holding them accountable. So now they're at this place where they're saying, remigration, we're going to pay you, Somalis, Middle Easterners, South Asians, we're going to give you money to go back home. So that's like that soft European approach versus that Trump hard approach of, I'm going to deploy, parts of our military to find these people and get them out. That's where we are. You look at all of how we're going to reverse these policies. It's just going to be one hell of a mess. It's going to be messy.
If you're craving more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics, check out our politics playlist right here. And if you don't want to miss any future videos, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell.